gather in your name, we hear a story and we wonder. So in our wondering, in these words, in our meditations, and in our actions, may your word be spoken. Amen. I think it's impossible to unknow what we know, to unlearn what we learn, right? We can try to not remember, we can try, but we can't unknow what we know and what we've learned. I mean, it happens. When you learn, "You are my sunshine," that gets recorded in a place in your brain that's not your cognitive memory. It's in a different place in your brain. So when people who are in comas can sit up and sing every note to a song, it's because it's coming from a different place in the brain. And you can't not know. This is true in that way. It's also true because our bodies remember things. There's a kinesthetic memory in our bodies, and we can't not know something. Riding a bicycle. Right? You may not have been, Dorothy, you may not have been on a bicycle for decades. But if you learned at that tender age the nuanced way of balancing on two wheels, I bet that if you got on a bicycle today, you would remember how to do that. Right? That's just typing. Did anybody take touch typing in high school? Right? That's kinesthetic memory. It's not your brain function is not, it's your body remembering. When at the tender age of 19, it was the first course I had to take in college because I was doing public relations. Public relations involved a ton of writing, journalism writing. So I needed to learn how to do that. And I cannot actually, with a pen in hand, compose a thing, except for my journal, which is a different thing. But when I'm sitting down, I can't write a letter, I can't write a sermon, I can't write blogs, I can't write anything unless my fingertips are at a keyboard. That's just my body's function. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. I think this is also particularly true of those searing moments in your life. And we know what they are, right? Our first kiss. Our first solo, public. Our first Our first drive in the car when there's no other adult. Our first day in school. Right? You can go there and you can't unknow that. There's also the hard things. The first failure in school. Your first fight. The first words or acts of abuse landed upon you. Sometimes the action is so searing that our cognitive memory actually blots it out, right? But our bodies remember. When Jesus was speaking about the Spirit of truth, that the world can't know, because the Spirit of truth, the world can't know because it hasn't received it, but you know it because it lives in you, I wonder if this is the kind of knowing that Jesus was talking about. I wonder if it's the kind of knowing that says, I see the world in this way, with all of those searing moments, all of those memories, the body experiences that my body remembers. Is this the Spirit of truth that Jesus was talking about? Did I just make sense there? Did that connect for you? You can't unknow what you know. And when that's true for me, that my Spirit of truth is my Spirit of truth, it's got to be true for Steve, or for Barbara, or for Dorothy, or for Jill. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world the way we are. Let me say that again. We don't see the world the way it is. We see the world the way we are. And that's through the lens of our own Spirit of truth. And guess what? Like we just learned in the story, one truth is not more right than another. It's just different. Now look in the room. Just look at each other. Each of you, the assumption that we can make is that each of us, individually, has had searing moments. Each of us has a kinesthetic memory of things that we remember uniquely. Each of us. Each of us sees the world not as it is, but the way each of us is. Look at the room. There isn't one right truth. There isn't one right spirit of truth. When we know this, I think that's the start of the reconciliation of persons about which we just spoke in our Song of Faith. We do not see the world the way it is. We only see the world as we are, individually. I know this to be true of individuals, but here in the upper room, where Jesus is gathered with his disciples, on the last kind of supper, and this is going into the whole events of the Passion story, Jesus isn't speaking to individuals here. He's speaking to that group gathered at the table. He is speaking to a group of people as a collective whole. He's speaking to the ones he's called friends, plural. The ones he's chosen to be fishers, plural, of people. He's speaking to his peeps, his community. Not as individuals, but as a whole. Where each one sees the world not as it is, but as they are. And he's speaking to them collectively. And I think that's how we need to hear the text today. I don't think it's useful to mine the story for clues to the historical Jesus. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think that questions of when, where, and did this happen are fruitful questions. I think that's chasing a rabbit hole. And I think there's a Mad Hatter's Tea Party down in that. I don't think that's helpful. I think we need to be at table like we are. There's a chocolate cake on our table. We need to be at table where Christ, the light of Christ, says to us, his followers as a collective, and we listen to him say, my beautiful friends at Lynn Valley United Church, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever, you collective. This is the Spirit of truth, whom the world can't receive, because it neither sees her nor knows her. But you know her, not you individually, you collectively, because she abides in you. Look around the room. She abides in us. And she will be in you. Look around the room. I won't leave you orphaned. I'm coming to you. In a little while you won't see me. You will no longer see me, but you will see me because I live in you. And you will also live. On that day, you know that I'm in the Father, and you in me, and I in you. They who have my commandments and keep them are those who love me. Those who love me will be loved in return. Look around the room. Jesus is not saying this to Alice. Jesus is not saying this to Helen, or to Shauna, or to Jason or Marion. Jesus is calling his disciples in this room together with all of our varying abilities. And it's LVUC's, Lynn Valley United Church's, spirit of truth that he's talking about. It's in LVUC in whom the Spirit abides. It's LVUC who keeps the commandments and is loved. And just like those searing moments in our individual lives, in our individual histories, Lynn Valley United Church has had some searing moments that we know deeply in our collective DNA, that we remember. Our first church building. Oh my goodness, Lil, you could tell us a million stories about those searing moments. Our first church building. Our first woman minister. Our first gay minister. Our first children to receive communion. Our first deficit. And believe me, if you read the history books, it was in the first 20 years of this congregation. Just saying. Our first ever campaign to raise money for programs only. Our first joint venture with a property developer. We can't unknow our history any more than we can unknow riding a bicycle or singing "You Are My Sunshine." We can't not know the spirit of truth that lives within us any more than Matt can't not know the progressions in the blues scale. We can't see the world the way it is. We only see the world as we are. And here we are now in this place. This is how we sing of God the Spirit, faithful and untamable, who is creatively and redemptively active in the world. Christ says to us today, right now, as a group of his faithful followers, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. I will not leave you orphan. I will come to you. He has and continues to come to us as we wonder, what does it mean to love Christ and to keep his commandments? What does it mean for Lynn Valley United Church to love Christ and keep his commandments? Jesus is not saying, if you keep my commandments, I will love you, like an if-then. He is saying, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Hear the difference? There's no condition here. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. That's the fallout of loving Christ. My question is, what does that look like? More importantly, what does that look like as we move forward as a collective group of people? What does loving Christ and keeping his commandments look like now? In the coming months, thanks to the Ministry and Personnel Committee, we will be undertaking a ministry planning process that will answer the question, to what priorities will we allocate, priorities and activities, will we allocate our human and financial resources next year? It will be a concrete, measurable, doable, realistic plan that includes the development of a staff action plan, and yes, the budget. Those two things gotta go together. Our budget's gotta look like what our staff is gonna be doing in order for us to move in a direction. The ministry, the board and the ministry personnel committee are already working on this process. And I think it will involve every ministry team, every committee in the church. At least I hope it will. So as you encounter this plan over the next few months and participate in its development, and when you get to the annual meeting in June and approve it, I would invite you to do two things. First, remember how the Spirit of truth already lives in you, within you. The Spirit of truth is known in you, individually. Also, remember that the Spirit of truth is also in us, collectively. It's already there. As we, as a community of faith, live together, we are not orphaned. We are highly resourced. And then ask of that plan, is this the best way to love Christ and keep his commandments? And how can I participate? If this is the best way, is it? And if it is, how can I participate? From those moments of unexpected inspiration and courage lived out, experiences of beauty, truth, and goodness, blessings of seeds and harvest, friendship and family, intellect and sexuality. In those moments of reconciliation of persons through justice, and communities living in righteousness, and the articulation of meaning, we at Lynn Valley United Church do sing of God the Spirit with great joy, with great gratitude. Why? Because God sang first. Amen. Please pray with me. Holy God, it's remarkable. You continue to have your way with us. As we gaze into the eyes of those who we journey with, you continue to have your way with us. You continue to affirm who we are as your people, as your children. The Spirit of truth continues to live in us. You continue to come to us. And you continue to invite us back into the world. As we look around the room, here we are. May we never forget, may it be written on our hearts that this is the truth. And may our lives reflect our connection to this circle. This is our prayer.